2, 1. Hey guys, welcome back. This is part 2 now of the neutral cards review. We went through 3 whole cards in 30 minutes, so let's see if we can do 30 cards in 30 minutes. And one of the things, shout out to Taro, and I think it's Amnesia Monster who brought it up in Ames Monster who brought it up in chat. We did make an error in one of the cards that appears later on, and this card is actually in the same category as the 3 prior cards that we had just done, and we were like, and we were saying, oh, these 3 are better than a Kraken ever was. Well, this card's also better than a Kraken ever was. It's in the same category. It would be, I don't have the exact number on it, because there's some processes that I can't do, like, you know, ad hoc, and we're adjusting the score. So also, all these scores, like I said before in the beginning, right? They're not like totally final. Some of these may shift around a little before Thursday's release. This one's definitely moving. It's gonna be around a 144, which would make it better than even a Tar Creeper, but it could also like end up a little lower than a Tar Creeper. But it's around there. It's not gonna be as good as the Snail, but it will be close. And that is a Giant Wasp, the Snail's cousin, also a bug, also poisonous, 3 mana instead of 2, and stealth. Poisonous, 2/2. So it's like the sturdier version of a Patient Assassin, and it doesn't taunt, but it does remove big dudes really well. And it's really hard to remove itself, right? Like, you need that 2 damage board clear or a cleave or something like that to remove the Giant Wasp. So it is really annoying, and it can kill any 3-drop, any 2-drop, any 4-drop, whatever you want it to do, right? Like, very flexible, also a beast. So this card is in the premium cards. It doesn't look like it on the tier list right now, but it will be moved there before Thursday and this thing goes live. The technical reason why it was down here instead of up there is because hugely messed up how poisonous and stealth related to each other. Like, we have a thing for it because we did Patient Assassin, like that's all back-ended, but like we didn't use that thing.
Yep.
So that was bad. But okay, so that should be under great. Okay, so since I just did that wonderful card, a nice 3-drop. Oh, and also, so far we have a 2-drop, a 1-drop, a 3-drop, and another 3-drop, right? All super premiums. This is why 3-drops are going to be fine. They're all super premiums, and they're all better than Krakens, and we're an UnGoro now. So why don't you go with the next card, which is a Frozen Crusher. Take it away.
Frozen Crushers, rare card, 6 mana, 8/8. After this minion attacks, freeze it. So you're freezing this thing. After it attacks, it is also an elemental. This is sort of the perfect example of a big, overstated minion with a drawback, right? And we've seen it in various forms: Ventricle Mercenary, Fell Reaver. We're going to see more of it in this expansion. But this is another sort of drawback in which you do get the first attack, but afterwards, your opponent doesn't have to deal with it the turn after that. Yeah. Which does hurt, but at the same time, you've already gotten sort of the value from it, right?
Like, think about it killing a 5-drop or a 6-drop. Like, it already did it. Or even a 7-drop, right? Its job is done. And then who cares if it dies later on? And if it doesn't die, you get a really huge thing. So it kind of has insane value, too. This is better than a Bog Creeper. And again, it fits the theme of taunts that freezes too, even though it freezes itself. It's the same idea, right? Things are being slowed. Yep. The board is hanging out. Things are slow. It's getting bogged down. You need removals. Okay, next card in UnGoro. Now this is where the drop happens. So we just went with kind of, I wouldn't even put Frozen Crusher at closer to like Glacial Shard, Tar Creeper, and the Wasp than the Stonehill Defender. Those were really the 5 core, really insanely good cards in the common or rare slot for neutral cards. Now we're going to Stonehill Defender. We're going down a step. These cards are not as good as Bog Creeper. They're not as good as Cult Master. They're not as good as Argent Commander. But they're still better. They're still super premium cards. So we're now in this section. And the first one is Stonehill Defender. It's a 3 mana 1/4 taunt, which is the Silverback Patriarch, which is a really crappy card. But this is a really good card because you then discover a taunt minion. So they like took an existing card that was a card and added not even a card draw, but a discover mechanic. Not even a discover mechanic, but discover a taunt. Right. It's just kind of a ridiculous like power creep. if you think about it in terms of Gnomish Experimenter,
Yeah.
that's a 4 mana 2/4. This is a 3 mana 1/4 with taunt, which I would say is about the same amount of utility. And rather than drawing a card, it discovers a taunt minion, which is better. And rather than being 4 mana, it's only 3 mana. So it's just ridiculous. And the Gnomish Experimenter is pretty good. I'll see where it is. But I think it's definitely like above average, right? Yeah, it's 110. So it's no Yeti, but it's close to a Yeti. And this is like just better than that in every single way.
Right. This is a perfect example of a card in which you combine two not so great effects, right? So you could say, oh, it's a Silverback Patriarch with a built-in I know a guy. And it's like, what's so good? It's like those two cards, I don't draft them individually, but together they do quite a lot, right? And this is something that you're going to see a lot in the arena. Two mediocre effects, when you put it together, turn into a really good card.
Speaking of I know a guy, Warrior's going to know a lot more guys in UnGoro. A lot of taunt minions coming to the Warrior, and same here. So UnGoro has a lot of taunts, right? So here we have another one that's taunt, and another one that is small drop, big value, right? This is for like, is it a 3-drop? Well, if you don't have a 3, you might as well play it, right? But like, it's really meant for the late game value. But it is only 3 mana. You can just like throw it out there.
Yep. So after that, we have, and I think a card that people think will, make a huge impact on the meta. We have Nesting Rock, 5 mana beast that has a 4/7 stat distribution. So really good stat distribution. And it also has a battle cry. If you control at least 2 other minions, gain taunt. So pure upside.
Free taunt.
Yeah. Pure upside. There's not really any downside. And a 4/7 stat line. This is sort of the first of its kind, right? Previous to that, we had legendary. You had
Fuegan.
What was it? Fuegan. Yes. Don't please don't. But now this is available to all classes at a very high rate. It's going to be the anchor on 5, right? Yep. People are going to pick it. You should expect this on 5. You should expect this to taunt if they have other minions as well. And once again, going back to the theme of just, taunts.
Yeah, like if you look at the tier list and you look at like the neutral cards and you see where the actual mana slots are going to be filled, you have like 2s, you have 3s, and now you have 1 at 5. You have Bomb Squad questionably at 5. But what you don't have is really 4s. You're going to get one in Tovir Stone Shaper, sort of. But that card aside, you don't really have that many at 4s you probably think you do. And yeah, just wanted to point that out. Hollowing out that curve. This is a weak curve meta because 4 is really important for your curve, and you're just not going to get a lot of those. So speaking of 4s, we're going to do 2 4-mana cards now. Next one is Fireplume Phoenix, which is 4 mana, 3/3, deal 2 damage. Stormpike Commando is 5 mana, does pretty much the same thing, drops pretty much the same body at a 4/2, and is not even an elemental. So it's a pretty insanely good card. Again, this is like premium, right? This is Bomb Squad levels of good card. You are going to play it, you are going to like it. And this card is even better, like, with elemental classes, right? Like, we're just going to go to elemental class Mage and see where this card is. This card is... Alright, it's not all that much better in Mage. I take that back. Maybe Shaman. Yeah, okay. Shaman, it's 128. It's like Dark Iron Dwarf levels in Shaman. It does stuff. All right.
So with something like Fireplume Phoenix, I think one question that people might ask is like, why isn't it even higher, right? And part of it has to do with, you can look at the pure upside in it, but there are, like, it is not a 4-drop, right? And those times definitely hurt its sort of value on the tier list, and you have to take those into consideration as well.
Yeah, like once you put a 3/3 on the board, what's going to happen to it? It's going to die. It's going to deal 3 damage to something and die. That's all that's going to happen to it. Okay. Your next card.
So, next is Tovir Stone Shaper.
Our 4-drop, our lonely 4-drop. There's 2 of them, but this is the only one that's actually good.
I know. 4 mana for a 3/5, my most hated stat distribution. With Battle Cry, if you played an elemental on last turn, gain Taunt and Divine Shield. So, if you didn't play an elemental, it is just a very mediocre / kind of bad 4-drop. And if you played an elemental last turn, it is ridiculous. It is Senjin with a Divine Shield. It is a slightly smaller Sunwalker. It is just amazing. And remember, this score is reflected in a non-existent neutral class, so it's going to be different when you go class to class.
Yep. And take a look at Shaman. This guy is 131, which is where Argent Commander is. Very high. Whereas in the normal class, it is 122, which is where stuff like Emperor Cobra and Pompous Thespian and Mad Bomber are. Sunwalker.
Yep.
So it really depends on the class. You really want a heavy elemental kind of class for this card to be super premium, but otherwise it's still good because you still have elementals. Everyone's going to draft elementals. Like we were looking before, right? Tar Creeper's an elemental, Glacial Shard's an elemental. That's already 2 elementals you're just going to draft all the time. Okay, next card. Now we're getting to like a little bit lower, you know, we're, like I said, right, we're in the Sunwalker, Mad Bomber, Cookie Chemist, we're in that zone. It's a good zone. These are good cards. You're happy to have them. But they're only like less than 5 points above a Yeti. And so they're very good, but you're not like jumping out of your chair for them, right? It's not like, oh yes, Bog Creeper, oh yes, Kraken. Or in the future, oh yes, Snail. It just doesn't have the same ring to it, man.
Oh yeah, Snail.
Doesn't have the same ring to it. Okay.
Anyways.
Volcanosaur. 7 mana, 5/6. You adapt, and then you adapt again. It's a double adapt. Adapts are interesting because they're worth about like 3 stats on, not on average, but like in terms, if you just pick the one with the most stats, you're gonna on average get something worth about 3 stats, which would make this kind of insanely strong, right? That would make it an 8/9 for 7 mana. So you should think, oh, why isn't this insanely higher? That's because most of the adaptations still don't have initiative, so it's still just like a big thing. It could be a big thing with taunt, but it is just a big thing. And some of the adaptations are like nearly useless for this, like poisonous, right? Like you don't really need this to be poisonous. So there's a little bit of RNG involved, and it ends up just being a big thing. But it's a really good big thing. There's not a lot of 7 mana cards that make it up here, right? Like before this card, like this card is now Bog Creeper aside the second highest 7 mana card. If you're looking at old cards that try to match it, Stormwind Champion is still a few points behind it. And that's not really like a big thing. That's like a thing that has to buff other things. So the 7 mana is what's hurting it, but otherwise it's good. It does its stuff, right?
Yep, definitely. So after that, we have another 7-drop. Big dudes.
Yep, big dudes.
7 mana for a 5/7 beast, Sated Threshodon with Death Rattle, summon 3 1/1 Murlocs. This is something which, you're getting quite a lot of stats, but you're also getting in a distribution that you like, right? Mm-hmm. If you're going to be understated for 7 mana, you kind of like the 5/7. Like usually 5 attack is very good, and summoning 3 1/1 Murlocs, you keep a board presence, and it's just like a very good amount of stats for what you're paying.
Yep. Yeah. So the reason why, like, some people think it should be a bit higher, I think, because it's just a lot of stats. But think about why a Wobbling Runs is not the best card in the game, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's why. It's because it has 7 health. Those Murlocs aren't coming out for a while, most likely.
Right.
Now, this is quite a bit more threatening, but 5 damage also ain't what it used to be.
Right. It's not. But yes, this is actually very different from Wobbling Runs, right? Wobbling Runs backloads the stats. Yep. This front loads the stats.
Which is good.
You do want, yes.
Which is why this is this high, and Wobbling Runs is not this high.
Yes.
Okay, next one is Volatile Elemental. We're in the same zone. Hosen Healer, Shatter Sun Cleric, MCT, Stampeding Kodo zone, Toxic Sewer, Ooze, Storm, and Champion. Volatile Elemental is a 2-drop. Compared to other 2-drops, it is, Loot Hoarder-ish. What else is around here? Wild Pyromancer. It's not as good as a Mad Bomber. Better than a Fairy Dragon, right? That kind of zone. So it's one of the premium 2-drops. You're going to be happy when you get it, especially if you need to play something on 2 when you're aggressive or when you're trying to defend. Because, remember, we have a weak curve now. Most curve cards right now are weak. And they're non-existent at 2. It's not even just weak, right? Like, you get 4 of these 2 mana cards that you can play at some point. So the fact that you have one that can hold its own against any 3-drop, that's pretty insane. Sure, it can get pinged if your opponent's a mage or whatever, but that's few and far between in terms of those matchups. And even if it is those matchups, half the time you'll make them do it on turn 3, which is awful for them.
Right.
So,
but we do recognize the awkwardness, and that's why it's not, very high.
Yeah.
Right.
2 mana deal 4 damage would be insanely high otherwise. But like you may also think, wait, if this is just like a 4/1, right? And there's RNG to it. What about Duskboar? Why isn't Duskboar so high if this is so high? Well, it's because if your opponent has dropped something already, they can't just ping this away. So like half the time, ping is not even a resolution to this. Pinging this is not even as good as just having your 3/2 or 2/3 hit this.
Duskboar would be amazing if it didn't go all in on the body, and this doesn't. This splits up the body of a Duskboar into 2 parts, like the boar and like a fireball or something. Oh. Yeah, the dusk.
The dusk.
Which deals 3 damage.
That's
apparently.
what dusk does.
Equals 3 damage. Yes.
Hearthstone.
There you go. Moving on.
Okay, so this is going to be very important in Firefly, which is that it's only 2 mana, it gives you an elemental. You want flexibility when it comes to playing your elementals. You want that because you want to be able to do stuff on the turn. You don't want to be locked into your elemental turns, because there are turns in which you need to set up your elementals. So mana cost is pretty big of a deal with elementals.
Yeah. So we're talking about Firefly. It is a 1 mana, 1/2 elemental with Battlecry. Add a 1/2 elemental to your hand. So not only do you get the amount of stats that you expect out of a 1-drop, which is 3 stats, either like a 2/1 or 1/2, you get another one into your hand, and it is a flexible elemental that you can play, which gives you another flexible elemental that you can play to trigger your other elementals. And that's where its score comes from, really. Like the fact that, the flexibility and the fact that you can trigger elemental effects, which are very, very powerful.
Super powerful elemental effects. That's where we're at here. And so people are like, it's a 1/2. What does it really do? It's 1 mana, deal 2 damage, right? Like, sorry, it's 2 mana, deal 2 damage at the end, right? Like, yeah, the damage is delayed. Yeah, it's not that great, but these things can't be pinged off. Super effective against paladins. They do little things, but mostly you use them as elemental triggers, and that's why they're there. This is now because Zombie Child's no longer in the game. And because there's no more Curve Stone for Mistress of Mixtures to be OP. This is now the best 1-drop in the game outside of Glacial Shard. It's kind of weird. We're in a weird place right now in the meta. Like, you'll see a lot of the, like, cards that you would think are, like, great curve cards be pretty good, but also a lot of these card advantage 1 mana, 2 mana, 3 mana cards be insanely high rated.
Yeah.
Because the difference between playing this card and not playing this card on turn 1 is the difference between having a curve and not. And when you know how Curve Stone works, when you get something on the board and it deals 1 damage, you deal 1 more damage the next turn, all of a sudden you're snowballing, right? So this preserves the trigger and it lets you do something on turn 1, which is more important than it seems. We keep saying threat and response meta, right? Well, this allows you to get a threat out there later on, and it initially also helps you play Curve Stone.
Right. Small drops, big things.
Small drops, big things. Yep. So that's
also, I've realized, so we've been going down descending order, but let's just remind. So Firefly comes in at a 117 on the tier list, so up next is a card that's 116. Take it.
Can you tell me what card it is? I'm in a weird. I'm showing by mana right now.
Oh, you're shown by mana.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what's the 116 card?
We have Eggnapper.
Eggnapper! I love Eggnapper. Okay. The reason I didn't see it is because it's so far down the list with 3-drops, because there are just so many 3-drops. Here, this is the list, right? So I'm filtering for commons and rares here. That's what you see. And this is the mana cost on the top. So 0, 1, 2, blah, 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 right? And we're going to scroll down. And you can see where the list ends, right? Like 7 mana plus ends pretty quickly. Then 6 ends. Then 5. Then 4. Look how many 3-drops there are. And then less 2s and then less 1s. This curve, this like offering rate curve is just centered on 3s. This is like a good visual of your general offering rate for UnGoro. It's just centered on 3. Anyway, and they're not bad 3 cards, because there was a period where there was a lot of 3. There was always a lot of 3 mana cards in neutral in Hearthstone, but they were all bad. This is UnGoro made them good. So Eggnapper, 3/1 Death Rattle, summon 2 1/1 Raptors. Again, very good, because it doesn't go all in on the 1 health. What happens if they take turn 3 or turn 4 to ping your 3-1? You still have 2 more damage. You haven't really lost all that much stuff. You definitely haven't lost tempo. What you have lost is a bit of card advantage, because losing a 3-1 to a hero power is like pretty bad tempo, right? Losing a 1-1 to a hero power is about even. So losing a 3-1 is pretty bad. But if you think about that in terms of 3-1, then this is a 5-3 for 3 mana. So you're already getting way more stats than you need. So the fact that they ping to get rid of a stat only halfway evens it out.
If they ping to get rid of this, then you just paid 1 mana because, you know, they're 2 mana. And then you just paid 1 mana for double 1/1s, which is Living Roots. And Living Roots is very, very good, right? It's not the exact way you should think about it, but I think that's a good, you know, good analogy.
Yep. So it scores pretty high. It's around Toxic Sewer Zone, Scarlet Crusader. It's better than a Scarlet Crusader. Because Scarlet Crusader survives 2 pings. This is 3 pings, right? You want the... You don't want to be all in on like one thing, and Scarlet Crusader is very much all in on like one weakness.
Okay, so next card, I have to chuckle. We're gonna have an interesting conversation about this. It is a Giant Mastodon coming in at 113. Giant Mastodon is a 9 mana, 6/10 taunt.
Wait.
That's also,
oh yeah.
Yeah, that's also a beast. Which really, you know, before you say anything about it, I think the first thing you should ask is like, why did they make this when Bog Creeper is still in existence? Which I don't know.
Because it's the year of the mammoth, and so they needed a mammoth, and the mammoth is known for being big.
It's also known for being much worse than Bog Creeper, but, you know, then your second question is like, well, why isn't it much lower? Bog Creeper is very, very good. And this is worse, but it is still a big thing that taunts and has a preferable stat distribution, right? If you're going to distribute these stats, your 6/10 is basically what you want out of it. So it comes in at 113. It's decent. You'll pick it.
It's decent. You'll pick it. Yeah.
You'll pick it.
All right. There's also... Okay, so what's next?
All right, next we got, oh no, it was going to be a Giant Wasp before you corrected yourself. But next you have Igneous Elemental.
Okay, Igneous Elemental, once again, right, does not look like a great card. 3 mana, 2/3, draw 2 cards that are elementals in your hand, but now you have 2 triggers, right? If 1 trigger was worth a lot, how much are 2 triggers worth? It's just a trigger card where we're valuing the elementals like this. And look at Igneous Elemental in a class in which triggers matter a lot, right? Like, look at it in Shaman. Igneous Elemental is a 119. That's like Emperor Cobra, MCT tech level good in Shaman, because Shamans have more things to do with elementals.
MCT tech?
Yeah.
MCTT. Yeah, man.
So yeah, Igneous Elemental. It's good. Like, don't shy away from these cards, like Igneous Elemental and Firefly. Like, really play them, test them out, get some elemental decks. Any class can be elemental.
Yeah, but definitely pick it if you're like Mage or Shaman. Anyways, Igneous Elemental comes in at 107. Next card coming in at 106 is Sabertooth Stalker for the Smork fans out there. All right, which should be everyone. Sabertooth Stalker is a 6 mana, 8/2 beast with stealth. So it is a super panther, okay? This jungle panther managed to double its attack and do nothing for its health.
Double its attack, double the mana.
Yeah. So look, we're getting to the range 106. This is where cards are just like, I'll take it. I'm not too happy about it, but I'll take it, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're way below a Yeti now. Yeti was 115. We're getting to the point where we're closing in on average card. And you get 3 options, so you generally fill your deck with above average cards. In fact, your deck usually ends up being 110 to 120 points on the current scale. So we're like below that.
So here is where you have stuff like Stormpike Commandos, Imp Masters, pint-sized summoners, all this stuff. So Sabertooth Stalker, it's definitely going to die to a couple of AoEs at some point. You're going to hate yourself, feel miserable, but it's also going to actually win you a game a few times, too.
I'm going to be so sad because I love... This is my favorite neutral card, by the way, in this entire set, is the Sabertooth Stalker. It just has such good flavor. But I'm going to be so sad when it dies because I'm sure it makes an awful sound.
Are you ready for our next expansion when they create like a 10 mana 12/2?
Oh god.
With stealth.
Just bigger and bigger cats.
It's just bigger and bigger cats. Anyways, that is Saber 2 Stalker.
All right, what's next?
Galaka Crawler. I hate this card. They should not print cards like these.
Galaka Crawler?
No.
It's a 2-mana 2/3. It kills a pirate. It gains +1/+1. There's not a lot of pirates in the game. This is barely going to trigger. But when it triggers, your opponent's going to be very sad.
All right,
on the bright side, there's not a lot of giant pirates or anything like that, so the destruction possibilities aren't that big. Yeah, and it's a beast for what it's worth, but, you know, they added a 2-drop in.
They did. Anyways, Galaka Crawler is a 105. Next card, which is everyone's favorite, it is still a 105.
It is not a 105. It's going to be lower.
Oh, dude.
I can actually tell you exactly how much lower it is.
Oh, my gosh.
Because this is just...
You're breaking people's hearts.
Hold on. And it's you. You're the one that implemented this rule. That's why it's getting added on at the very end.
Oh, it's the MERPS penalty.
It's the MERPS penalty. Yeah, it's a 100.
No. It's a 100.
It's a 100 exactly. That's pretty cool, actually.
Okay, it's a 100. Oh, wow. Guys, Ultra Soar, which is a 10-mana, 7/14. This really funky-looking dinosaur that I can't stare at for a long time. Otherwise, he creeps me out. All right? Ultra Soar is coming in at 100, okay?
The dead average of the old meta, which will be below average in the new meta.
Right. So this is actually below average. We are at the point where this is below average.
Definitely below average.
And it is already getting a penalty for being unplayable.
Yes.
The only thing redeemable about it is, like, the fact that 7/14 means it's basically not getting removed. And that's...
What? Haven't you heard of this new card that the mage has that kills Ultrasaurs?
Okay, you know what?
Specifically designed to kill Ultrasaurs?
No, I love the flavor on that one. I love how the fact I'm like, a meteor has to be able to kill the biggest dinosaur, right? And it does. Meteor kills the biggest dinosaur. Love it. Anyways, we'll talk about that card later on. Ultrasaur, so it is a below average card. Meh. Anyways, you want to talk about the next card, which is actually higher. Okay,
okay, fine. What's the next card?
Servant of Kalamos at 104.
Servant of Kalamos. All right, now we have the first card in which you do something after you play an elemental. We kept hyping up all these elementals, right? So how are you going to use these elementals? You're going to use these elementals with Servant of Kalamos. Battle Cry. If you played an elemental last turn, discover an elemental. That's pretty huge. And remember, here's the thing with elementals, right? All you have to do is have them in your hand, then have Servant of Kalamos, and then you can play the elemental on any turn, especially the small ones that you just squeeze into a turn, and the next turn you get Kalamos. That's all.
Right. And Kalamos is itself an elemental, so
you can chain Kalamoses.
Right.
Especially when you discover a Kalamos.
Exactly. Now, you could think, that's insane. Why isn't it any higher? Remember, this is for a neutral class. So for a neutral class, you are not expected to get that many elementals. And
Servant of Kalamos is a 126 in Shaman, just to give you an example.
Ridiculous. Yeah,
yes.
That's
126 is where Big Time Racketeer lives. It's where Stormwind Champion lives in Shaman, because it's getting a bonus for being able to make totems attack. It is where, like, freaking lightning bolts are there, right? Like, it's a damn good card for Shaman.
It is quite good. So, after that, we have... Oh, I like this one. Ravasaurus Runt at 102. Ravasaurus Runt going to be in the running for cutest card of the expansion. 2-mana, 2/2 beast. Battlecry, if you control at least 2 other minions, adapt. So this is one of those cards that it is, remember, we are, like, this is below average now, right? Like, the average is going to be a little bit higher than this. So this is a card in which on turn 2, you probably don't have at least 2 other minions unless you play, like, Alley Cat or something. So
the
it just becomes...
card, which is a spell, which gets all the bonuses.
Yeah. But Ravasaurus Runt on turn 2, most of the time, if you play it on turn 2, it's just a 2-mana 2/2, which... you know, is not great, but okay.
Like, if you have it in your hand on turn 2, you do that rather than nothing.
Right. But Ravasaurus Runt sort of goes into the theme of, you know, small dudes that do big things, right? This, later on in the game, it's just an significantly overstated 2-drop. Because, as we said, Adapt is a little bit more than 1 mana, right? Like, so basically you're paying 2 mana, you get to respond to the situation, and you're dropping something like very good. So this is a card that comes in at 102. You'll take it. Next card
is a
Rockpool Hunter. You just need me to say all these, don't you?
Yeah, because I'm on a... I can't see.
I will just introduce all of them from now on.
Okay. Rockpool Hunter is a 2/3 Murloc. That battle cry, give a friendly Murloc +1/+1. There is nothing to be said about this card. We will move on.
Oh, goddamn. All the Murloc hate, man. Anyways, Rockpool Hunter comes in at 100. Next card also coming in at 100 is Stegodon, a 4-mana, 2/6 beast with Taunt.
It taunts a lot of stuff.
It taunts stuff, man.
6 damage, that's a lot.
Next card. Take it away, Thunder Lizard.
Thunder Lizard? I thought it was a vicious fledgling.
Oh, it's a Thunder Lizard. It's not a Thunder Rhino.
Where's the Thunder Lizard? How much mana is a Thunder Lizard? Why can't I find the Thunder Lizard?
It's because it costs 3.
Oh. Wow, we have a lot of cards rated 100. There's a lot of like cards where they were printing and it was like, let's make it normal for the previous meta. And then let's make everything else so much better. Okay, Thunder Lizard, another elemental. Like, not an elemental, but something that uses elementals. If you played an elemental last turn, adapt. So, adapting is really good. And if you could do this on curve, that's insane. Imagine a 3/6 on turn 3, or a 4/4 on 3, or a 3/3 with poisonous at some point later on. So, very good. And remember, for all these cards, like Thunder Lizard and like Kalamos, you're pretty much guaranteed to get the thing to trigger later on. Like, you're going to see a lot of elementals. Like, we told you those are good cards. Some of the good cards that are elementals aren't even just about being elementals. They're just good cards. You're going to draft them. And a lot of classes have extra elementals. Classes you don't think about. Like, Warrior has an elemental. You know? Like, what's up with that? I don't know. But it just means if you're not playing this on turn 3, it's going to adapt. It's the same as the Ravasaurus thing, right? Like, if you play it later on, you're probably going to have a turn where you have 2 minions on the board and you can spare 2 mana, right? Like, it's just going to adapt. And when it does adapt, you get more value for a small card. Right.
So, next card, and I know this is some people's favorite, is Vicious Fledgling, which is coming in at a tier score of 99. It is a 3-mana, 3/3 beast. And after this minion attacks a hero, adapt. So, this is one of those interesting cards, and we've seen this with like the, oh god, I'm forgetting the name. The Illusionist card for Shaman.
Yep. I'm going to go find it right now.
Gosh, what was that?
It is a... Wait, what? Is it gone now? No, it can't be gone. It's a pretty new card.
It can't be gone.
It's 4 mana, right? Oh, it's an epic, that's why.
It is an epic, yeah. What is it? Oh, it's gonna
Lotus Illusionist.
Lotus Illusionist. So this seems to be a mechanic that Blizzard is playing around, basically giving you extra stuff, right? Extra stuff by forcing your hand, saying, I will give you these extra stats, but you have to go face, which I know a lot of people out there, you're like, well, that's where I'm going anyways. But most of the time you want to interact with the board. And it requires you to make this choice, make this sacrifice. And even when you go face, you know, you can't always rely on getting Wind Fury, right?
Yeah.
You can't always rely on getting like stealth or something. So it...
In case you're wondering like why Wind Fury is good here, it means you can attack face again and adapt again.
Oh, there you go. For the people that might not get it. Huh.
Sorry, I'm just one of those people all the time, so I'm just watching out. I'm watching out for my people out there.
Oh, there you go. All the advocates out there. So yeah, this card, I think the design is fantastic. Making it so that you present this choice to the player and making it like not letting them know exactly what will happen. Like with the Lotus Illusionist and with this, you don't know what 6-drop is going to appear. You don't know what adaptation you're going to get. I think is fantastic.
Yeah. So this is like an average card, which means you don't really want it. And if you look at this is like a 3-mana 3/3, and it's 99 under 100. The like Lotus Illusionist was a 111, which is a lot better, and that's also an understated card. But the reason that there's a difference is because, one, adapting is not as good as getting a random 6-drop. Getting a random 6-drop is kind of significantly better. But more important than that, it's 3-drops are overloaded. Like, this is the one area of the curve left in the entire game where you are going to have enough to curve out without worrying about it.
Yep.
Every other one, including 4s now, because remember, the 4s you had a catastrophic loss, you care about. So there's a lot of squeezing out going on. Like, Thunder Lizard's a damn good card, but it's just not making the cut. Like, if you're going for late game value, Thunder Lizard is, like, not that great. Vicious Fledgling is, like, not that great. Igneous Elemental is, like, the same, and it's guaranteed. Right? Like, if we're talking about the late game. Okay. Anyway.
Next, you got Stormwatcher, a 7-drop.
Stormwatcher. Okay, so here's what I will consider the first playable Wind Fury card of the game.
Right.
And
it's coming in at a 98 score.
So it is barely playable. It's going to be significantly below average when you know, the recentering happens. But you know, sometimes you get crappy choices. And you're going to see Stormwatchers a lot because it's going to have the offering bonus. It is a 4/8 elemental with Wind Fury. It's playable. It's got 8 health. It's not dying. And
playable.
So you're going to be able to hit 2 things with it the next turn.
Also,
and it'll probably even live.
This embarrasses Wind Fury Harpy. Let's be honest.
Wind Fury Harpy costs 1 less mana.
Right. And you trade so much survivability. But anyways. And
Power
Wind Fury Harpy
creep.
is... not in the pure sense, but this thing is
Wind Fury Harpy, by the way, is at 80.
Right. Yeah. Anyways, that's Stormwatcher. Next we have Pterodax Hatchling, another contender for cutest card of the expansion. Pterodax Hatchling comes in at 97. So these basically the last like 10 cards we've talked about, they're all very close within each other. It is a 3-mana 2/2 beast that with Battlecry adapt. So this is a card in which, look, it is understated, right? It's actually significantly understated for what you get. And then once you adapt, you're supposed to gain it all back. Like Adukta says, if adaptation is 3 stats, you gain 3 stats from it, and you just recoup what you should get, right? The problem is there is a little bit of RNG. You don't always get exactly what you want. And the adaptation on the 2/2 body, like it doesn't work out the way that you really want it to.
Yeah, it's not a giant taunt. If you get a Divine Shield, it's not a Divine Shield on a 7/7. It's one on a 2/2. Like, imagine if you got Divine Shield, which is usually pretty damn good, right?
Right.
That makes this a 2-mana card. That makes this a Shield of Minibot.
Okay, well, the most oppressively good 2-drop in the game.
Fine, but this is 3 mana.
Right. This makes it a bad Silent Knight.
Right, exactly. So there are way too many things that don't work out for this card. Like, it is just overpriced.
Yep, and that's why it is.
And this is a simple way to think about it, right? Like, you'll find something that should be a theme here, which is adapt cards are not that good. Like, compared to just the blatant overpowerness of the rest of the things, like, adapt cards really are not that good.
Right. Anyways, so that's Pterodax Hatchling, and then we are going way down. We had sort of a glut of cards near the 105 to 95 range, and next card that you'll be talking about is Emerald Reaver at 74.
Whoa.
I know. Whoa.
Emerald Reaver. So this is a huge drop. 74 is where Stone Tusk Boar is. It's where Hungry Crab is. It's where Goatshire Footman is. You don't want these cards. And what card don't you want? It's a 1-mana 2/1 that deals 1 damage to each hero. Nothing more to be said about it. Move on.
All right, sounds good. After Emerald Reaver, we have Primal Fin Lookout at score of 66. It is a 3-mana 3/2 Murloc Battlecry. If you control another Murloc, discover a Murloc.
Nope. Next.
Moving on. Devilsaur Egg.
It is a 3-mana 03 that summons a 5/5 Devilsaur. Look, you'd rather just pay 2 mana and get the last 1/1. Like, with the other egg. Like, the other egg's just way better. I don't know.
Right.
This is kind of like not a well-designed egg compared to the other egg.
Not a well-designed egg. Fantastic. No,
bad adaptations.
Right. It's like the other egg wasn't amazing in Arena anyways. This is an even worse egg.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. Okay. And lastly, we have Humongous
No, you're missing the Emerald Hive Queen.
What?
Oh no, I put epics on by accident. My bad.
Yeah, God.
My bad. Go on.
All right, next. So Devil Sword Egg was a tier score of 60, bringing up the rear for commons and rares in neutral. At a tier score of 28 is Humongous Razor Leaf. 3 mana for 4/8 stats and a can attack. So you are paying for a bigger Ancient Watcher.
And the best part is they're like the same rating. Like they actually like Blizzard valued these cards very consistently.
Oh yeah.
Like for definitely. The mana, like this is pretty incredible. Humongous Razor Leaf, 4/8 Ancient Watcher, 4/5, 1 more mana, works out in our system. All right, so those are the cards you won't see. Let's now go to the epics. Ooh, the epics.
All right.
So the thing with epics is, up until this point, everyone hated epics because 7.1 had made epics like ridiculously oppressive. In that there's too many of them and they all suck.
Yep.
And that was the story of epics until now. Because now what's happening with epics is, like, I just want you to see the map on here. Like, look at the bottom. I'm going to put this, not at the bottom. I guess at the top of the screen. You see where the things that are underlined in green? That's our wonderful little graphic that Altar Slayer created for us. And that represents the UnGoro cards. And there's a little key over here with the egg that I can unhighlight and highlight them. So that's pretty cool when you click on the egg. And if you notice, all these underlined things are all on the left, which means they're all high valued compared to what existed here before. So that means what existed here before were all the stuff on the right. 100 is right here. So that means before, almost all the epics were average or significantly below average. And now, they just even things out. They didn't even quite manage to even things out, but I think with the offering odds of doubling, it will actually even it out. So now epics are not awful. Like, you don't get penalized for, like, winning the lottery and getting an epic instead of a common. So let's see what the epic cards are. Remember, these are offered at half the rates of rares and commons now. They used to be offered at 0.7 the rate, but because we took away 2 expansions with only 2 epic cards between them, that really changed the rates, right? So now there's still more epics in relation to rares and commons than there used to be, which is why the rates dropped down to 0.5 now. Per card.
So, coming in at a very beastly 159 score, Bitter Tide Hydra, 5 mana for an 8/8 beast. Whenever this minion takes damage, deal 3 damage to your hero. This is exactly what I'm talking about when I say, we're going to see a couple more minions with, big stats, low cost, or lower costs than what you should have, but negative effects, right? And this is also where you say, Merps, you're crazy, hard countered by Volcano, and I say yes. There will be those times, and I am sorry, but it's going to happen to you if you play Arena enough, where you play this against a Shaman, pray that they don't have Volcano, but they have the Volcano. However, just like with Fel Reaver, this is a good card because you get so many freaking stats.
Yes.
The 8/8 is ridiculous. And sometimes you're going to take between 6 to 9 damage, right? Like you're going to take between 6 to 9 damage for this. But typically you would pay that cost in order to pump this out. This is ridiculous amount of stats on turn 5. And yes, you're going to lose to Arcane Missile shenanigans. You're going to lose to a lot of shenanigans, just like how you lost to shenanigans with Fel Reaver. But Fel Reaver was
super highly rated too.
Amazing. This is amazing as well.
Yeah, and now the 8/8 actually does stuff, because there's actually stuff with 8 health, a lot of stuff with 8 health that's coming out on turn 6-ish. Like that one card that's 6 mana and 3/8 taunt that was introduced in Mean Streets of Gadgetzan.
Yep.
That's gonna die. It's like Ancient Blossom or something. Anyway, remember, this is 159, so this is actually better than the Snail. We think this card is better than a Snail. How about that? And a Snail was epically good.
But the Snail kills this thing.
And deals 3 damage to your hero.
Hard countered.
This is actually the best neutral card. Not the Snail, but it's an epic, so you're going to see it less. So it won't be as meta-defining, but it will be annoying. You will still see it a lot. It's just half the rate. It's not like not in the meta. This is the new epics. Like,
right.
These are going to be here still.
Just remember how many times someone dropped Fel Reaver on 5, and you're just like, huh, well, that really sucks.
Yes.
Like, I can't deal with this. Yeah, that's going to be it. What?
Epic neutral minion, 0.2. That means every 5 drafts, someone will be offered this, and they will take it.
Yep.
Because it's the best epic card. Every 5 drafts. So that means every 5 of your opponents, once every 5 opponents, you will see this card. Or let's say they play half their cards. Once every 10 opponents, you will see this card. This is in the meta. You will see it a lot. You will hate it.
Yep.
Primordial Drake.
Primordial Drake coming in at 153. What is this card?
It is an 8 mana for 8 taunt that deals 2 damage to all other minions, like that Murloc thing that existed.
Yeah, this oh God. For 2 more mana, instead of a 2/3 Murloc, you get a 4/8 Taunted Dragon. That's pretty good value. It's pretty good.
I don't know. There's not much else to say about it, but like, there's a lot of things now that deal 2 damage. That's really been amped up as a thing, right? And you can see Blizzard doing it in the arena too. They took out Flame Strike, or they didn't take it out. They reduced its offering rate, so it's not really a card in the arena anymore. And they're just like uncomfortable with things dealing more than 3 damage, even at 3 damage, right? Abyssal Enforcer they took away. Like the powerful 3 damage everything cards are also being taken away, but they don't touch the 2 damage everythings, right? They don't touch the lightning storms or anything like that. And now they're just adding more cards that deal 2 damage. There's the Primordial Drake. There's that Fire Plume with the 4 mana deal 2 damage to something. So this is going to be a thing. Dealing 2 damage to stuff is going to be easy. Dealing more than that is going to be a little harder.
Right. And by easy, and not saying everyone's going to have 2 damage all the time. It is like, that is, if you're going to have removal, it's more commonly going to be 2, you know?
Rip Sabretooth.
Oh, no.
Because you know what the Sabretooth can do? He can kill this 4/8. If he lived.
If he lived.
So it depends on who plays who first.
Oh, true. Oh my gosh, the war. But, dude, Drakes kill Sabretooths, they kill snails, and they kill wasps.
Oh, wow.
They kill everything.
Drakes, the answer to UnGoro. So this is rated like a tiny bit below a snail, only because it's 8 mana. Like, the game's over sometimes by 8 mana, whereas the game's never over by 2 mana.
Right. The fact that this is so high, even being at 8 mana, I mean, it just shows how powerful it is.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, 8 mana cards are not rated this high.
So, next card, which I think you all enjoy.
By the way, before we get to this, I just want to say, like, the big cards, right? You have a giant 5 mana 8/8 overstated card. Then you have the snail, which is technically understated but has like weird mechanics, and then you have a board clear. Like, Blizzard's really shaking things up here.
Right. Yeah. No, that's the way it is.
It's good diversity.
Also, and I think this is an interesting way because we see a lot of poisonous minions. A good way to think about a poisonous minion is So like a snail, for example, instead of thinking as a 1/2 with taunt, think of it as a 15/2 with taunt. But whenever you attack face, it's like a Tar Creeper, right? In that way. Whenever you attack face, it only has 1 attack.
Except you can still kill the opponent even if they don't kill you, which a Tar Creeper can't.
Right, sure. So yeah, like if you think of it that way, I think it might like make people think of it in a different way. Anyways, next card coming in, next epic card coming in at a 139 on our tier list is a Charged Devilsaur. 8 mana for a 7/7 beast with charge!
Charge!
And Battlecry can't attack heroes this turn.
Just bring it out without the Battlecry.
Yeah, well, you can, what was it, free from Amber
this
thing?
Free from Amber, yeah. You can free from Amber this thing.
Yeah,
charge face. So now priests have a lot of reach.
Oh God. Damn.
There's only 30 cards, by the way, that the Ember can come. So you have a 1/10 chance of getting a Charged Devilsaur offered.
Yep. So, Charged Devilsaur.
Next up, by the way, I'm ordering by, there's so few cards I can do this now myself.
Oh.
Advocate gained an ability. Gluttonous Ooze, 3 mana, 3/3. Battlecry, destroy opponent's weapon and gain armor equal to its attack. So, the anti-weapon meta is still alive and well. Toxic Sewer Ooze loses its offering bonus, but you get added a Gluttonous Ooze at half the bonus that Toxic Sewer Ooze had, and the Toxic Sewer Ooze's base, as well as the Acetic Swamp Ooze's base, both went up by a tiny bit. So you're basically, like, weapons are still not a good thing to be carrying around. You know, like a certain class may want to.
Perhaps. Anyways, that's it for the Ooze. Next card, slightly below that at 117 on the tier list, is Blazecaller, otherwise known as Fireland Portal Wet Dream. 7 mana for a 6/6 elemental. Battlecry, if you played an elemental last turn, deal 5 damage. So, the reason that this card is not higher is because, you know, we took the average of how many elementals you will get in a neutral class. Should we take a look at what this card is in, like, Shaman? Or
152. It's up there with the snails and all that.
Yeah, okay. So in Shamans, it's like a super premium card. It comes in at around a Primordial Drake, a Bittertide Hydra, you know, cards that you would actually see up against, right? So in the elemental
better than
class,
a fire elemental.
Yeah, because it's just much more powerful than a fire elemental. And in Shaman, you should be able to get it off. Right?
Anytime you want. There's so many elementals in Shaman.
There's so many elementals in Shaman that you should pick. I mean, you're never presented with the choice of Fire Ellie or Blazecaller, but you would actually pick a Blazecaller because you should have that many elementals. It's that sick. Next card.
Next card, Bright-Eyed Scout. It is a 4 mana, draw a card for 3/4, power creep, except the card you draw changes cost to 5 mana, which is RNG whether it's actually good or bad. Like, you could really ramp out something ridiculous, especially because this is turn 4, and so next turn you can play whatever card you draw. And so what did the scouts see? Well, it probably changed your 2 mana card into a 5 mana card if you have luck of normal people who play Hearthstone, but you could get totally lucky and be able to put out an Ultra Sword.
Right. So remember, this Bright-Eyed Scout has a tier score of 109. Make sure you read out the tier score.
Oh, yeah, tier score is 109.
Yeah.
So that's, like, pretty good.
It's basically, we're around the average point now.
Yeah.
You know? Like,
well,
this is
average in your deck. This is like where Gnomish Experimenter is. It has its downsides, but its upside is it has 1 extra stat, and the possibility of ramping out something ridiculous is always game-winning, right? Horrible card design.
Right. So next we have, at 108 tier score, we have the Tortollan Primalist.
Speaking of horrible card design. Like, you know how, like, positive I am about UnGoro? Like, I have not liked an expansion having seen its cards as much as I like UnGoro. I think this is, like, the best designed... Like, MSG was fun, but it wasn't, like, the most well-designed thing. This is actually very well-designed from a competitive point of view. But, like, this is kind of like the concession, right? Like, we're going to have a Bright-Eyed Scout, we're going to have a Tetaria Primalist, we're going to give people their stories.
Yeah. Anyways, Tortollan Primalist is an 8-mana, 5/4 minion with Battlecry, discover a spell, and cast it with random targets. So you're getting something that is significantly understated. Right? You're discovering a spell, and you're introducing randomness to it. But the discover aspect is quite good because you can oftentimes discover a spell. For example, when you get AoE can only go to your opponent, right?
Well, it depends on the AoE.
It depends on AoE, but a lot of AoEs, it just says, like, deal that to enemy minions.
More importantly, you do this with Sprint.
Right,
you do this with Mind Control. That's what you want to do this with.
Yep, definitely. So, look, the score isn't great, right? We are at a point, and it's 108, so this is, like, average, below average. But because of the fact that you can choose which spell it casts, so it's unlike sort of Servant of Yogg-Saron in that you have no idea, right?
The Discover makes a huge difference here.
It does. It makes a huge difference.
This is an above-average card. Like, in terms of just normal cards. Not an above-average card in your deck. But, like, in terms of overall cards, it's actually an above-average card. Because the Discover element really takes away a lot of the downside.
Yeah. Now, like, you have to average out sort of the best-case scenario with, like, a lot of really bad scenarios. And also punish it for the RNG aspect.
Like, if you want to know what the Servant of Yogg-Saron is, Servant of Yogg-Saron's at 86.
Yeah.
It's not even comparable to how highly we have we have the Totalitarian Primal is rated. And Servant of Yaxaron is only like, what, like 5 mana? So paying 3 mana for the discovery effect is more than worth it. Because that's how devastating not having a choice is for a card like this.
Yep. So, that is the Primalist. You got the next one?
It's a Gentle Megasaur. It's a 4 mana 5/4. You adapt your Murlocs. Murlocs are not a thing. Don't worry about it. It's a 4 mana 5/4. Tiny bit of upside.
It comes in at a 91 on the tier score. Thank you so much for telling people about that.
And the best card. The best for last. The best for last.
Oh my gosh. All right. Coming in at a sizzling tier score of 54.
Squeeze between a Dirty Rat and a Weasel Tunnler. That's what we think about this card.
I mean, you know, Twitch chat thinks Weasel Tunnler is like the best card ever. So,
sorry, I haven't gotten around to raising Weasel Tunnler yet. That's happening. The Weasel Tunnler raise of tier score is happening.
Anyways, at a tier of 54, we have Emerald Hive Queen. It is a 1 mana 2/3. Oh my gosh. That says your minions cost 2 more. It's good. It's really good on turn 1. It is really good on turn 1.
If you don't have a turn 2 or a turn 3 in your hand.
Your opponent can actually not play something and take the face damage.
Your opponent cannot play something, and then you cannot play something.
Right.
And then your opponent cannot play something, and then you still can't play something.
Yeah, basically. It's basically, if they actually play something into it, which they shouldn't, then you can get a lot of value out of it.
Yes.
Right? But if they are smart, they shouldn't play anything into it. And in the late game, this thing is quite bad. Because even if you think it's like, oh, just drop it last and it's a 1 mana 2/3, it's a 1 mana 2/3.
Exactly. It's still just a 2/3 in the late game. Remember all of these like small cards that have high value that they're adding to the meta? This isn't it. This is a small card with small value in the late game, which actually makes it one of the few small cards with small value in the late game that remains. So there's a reason why this card is rated so awfully. Like, don't pick it. This is an awful card. What it's meant to do is for like for control decks, in that if you can't play anything on 2 anyway, and you can't play anything on 3 anyway, then putting this out gets like 6 damage on your opponent's face, which could matter if you're against Rogue or some other aggressive class, could eat a removal and forces your opponent to have like a 3/3 or something at some point, and then it still deals 2 damage, right? Like, it does a whole lot of stuff, but that's assuming that your deck doesn't do like the whole curve thing at all for 2 turns. Like,
yes.
It's pretty bad. And it's only fitting very specific decks. So the thing is, will you see me draft this card? Yes, you will. But only in a very, very specific deck. Just like, you know, we got 12 wins with a Weasel Tunnler. And we did very well with other Weasel Tunnlers. Weasel Tunnler's like a legit card for certain decks.
Right. So something that you guys need to make sure that you see with this card, it is only your minions that cost 2 more.
Yes.
If it was all minions, this would be awesome. This would be actually amazing.
Yes.
Like, ridiculously amazing. This would be like the freaking best card in the game.
Best.
Yeah,
all right.
But it is yours.
Yep. Okay. So finally, we're going to go really quickly over the legendaries, and I'm just going to take all these legendaries. Ozark is not really 7 points. It just says 7 right there because it hasn't updated. It's not good, though. We're going to go in reverse order because the legendaries all suck. This is something, like, the legendaries really are all bad. Ozork is going to be below 100 somewhere. I don't have the exact score here, but it's going to be bad. It is 9 mana, 5/5, elemental. Taunt, Battlecry, gain 5 health for each elemental you played last turn. So it's like a 5/10 for 9 mana. Like, sometimes it's more, but generally it won't be. And then you have to, like, combo it out. And then even then, like, think about an Ancient of War. That's 7 mana for a 5/10. Like, this has issues. It's a bit better in Shaman. It's like a pickable legendary in Shaman. And if you guys are wondering, like, we're breaking our rule. We're actually doing legendaries now because legendaries are in the meta now. Like,
they're a thing.
And especially with class legendaries are going to be offered not only because not only at their normal offering rates, but actually at double that. Because every class has another legendary that has a quest mechanic that's been taken out of the arena. So the remaining one fills the gap that it leaves. That's how offering odds work for Blizzard. So you're actually going to see quite a lot of those class legendaries. Anyway, the Vorax, 4 mana 3/3. After you cast a spell on this minion, put a 1/1 plant and cast another copy on it. Like, you know, this is bad.
Yeah, it's going to be higher for something like Paladin. So, yeah, on the neutral score, it is a 62.
For a Paladin, it's an 88. Like, it's just bad. Don't pick them. Scores don't matter, don't pick them. Spirit Slayer Umbra, 4 mana 3/4. After you summon a minion, triggers Death Rattle effect. Needs to combo with a Death Rattle. Not that many Death Rattles around. It's playable, but it's like bad playable. 84. At least the Trailblazer. You guys are going to be disappointed at me for this, but it is a 90. In the same way we punish Malkazar, we punish Elise. 5 mana 5/5. Battlecry. Shuffle a sealed UnGoro pack into your deck. UnGoro is a good expansion, but these are random cards, and there's 5 of them, and you're going to get them, and you're not going to like them.
So this is something that might change, because they said that for the packs, it's not completely random.
What do you mean?
So Ben Brode basically went on stream and said that because they recognize that the random cards you get are actually not good at all, right? They are basically distributing them differently. Like, they're going to give you better cards than what you should expect. I have no idea. So this is something that will probably move. But yeah.
Once we know how it works.
Exactly. Because we don't know how it works, honestly.
All right.
We don't know how it works. So consider this score in...
This score assumes that the cards are random.
Yep.
And even if it's not random, they have to give you cards that are good for the arena. Like, I don't know, it's a bad mechanic. And finally, our best rare legendary card, Hemet Jungle Hunter. 6 mana 6/6. Destroy all cards in your deck that cost 3 mana or less. Love it, because it makes your top deck wars very good, and top deck wars are a thing. So you want to be drawing 4 mana or more cards. It's a very good arena card. The problem is it's still 6 mana 6/6, so it can't be that high.
Yep. All right, that's it.
We have reviewed the entire UnGoro meta, and we have fit them all into our themes.
The neutrals.
The neutrals, and that is that's a wrap on the neutrals. We'll go into classes next, but I think this is like, should have taken a lot out of this from the 4 main themes, right? Weak curves, small drops, big values, lots of taunts, lots of big dudes, and that's the UnGoro meta.
Yep.
See you in the next video. We're going to do Shaman.
All right.